Red alert in Ashburn. 3 bombs ready to blow up your season. Will the Commanders survive? First, our human tank is in the sights of 4 hungry franchises Peters playing poker with a trade that could leave you breathless in the backfield, or steal an elite pass rusher from a rival. Second, an Alabama ghost emerges from the roster shadows, undrafted receiver conquering Daniels step by step while Terry McLaurin plays cat and mouse. With $90 million at stake. Third, the negotiation. Paralyzing Redskins. Park, 5 days to prevent our icon from becoming a mass destruction weapon for another franchise. This is nitrogen monoxide drill your subscription. Decides if you'll hear it first or cry over obsolete info remnants. Turn on the bell, smash like, and I swear, I'll take you to the eye of the storm where your heroes' destinies are decided. Before ESPN steals our content, do you dare doubt IT? Now I ask something that many aren't considering. What happens when a running back who led the team in rushing yards last season suddenly becomes trade bait? Because that's exactly what's happening with Brian Robinson Jr. right now. I believe the organization is making a very calculated decision here. Robinson has just 1 year left on his contract, and with Austin Eckler already on the roster and other young backs pushing for playing time, Adam Peters is seeing a golden opportunity to get value before Robinson hits free agency. But let's delve deeper because Brian Robinson Jr.'s story isn't just about numbers on a stat sheet. This is a player who survived an assassination attempt in his 2nd year in the league. I tell you this, when someone survives something like that and comes back to lead his team in rushing, it speaks to a character that goes beyond football. Robinson rushed for 797 yards and 8 touchdowns last season, but those numbers don't tell the whole story. He was our most reliable back in 3rd and short situations, converting 73% of his 3rd down tries with less than 3 yards to go. That kind of production doesn't show up in highlights, but wins games. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in an interesting situation with their backfield. They have Jaylen Warren, who had a decent season with 784 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. But Warren is more of a speed back lacking Robinson's physical power. Rookie Caleb Johnson from Iowa has potential, but it's just that untested potential in the NFL. I tell you this, Robinson would be perfect for Pittsburgh's system, where they value physical toughness and consistency between the tackles. Mike Tomlin has always preferred backs that can grind yards when the game gets physical, and Robinson has exactly that style of play. Imagine Robinson running behind that Pittsburgh offensive line, which is among the league's best in running. Game protection. But here's what really grabs my attention, the Cincinnati Bengals. Chase Brown had a promising rookie season with 642 rushing yards, but he struggled with fumbles and didn't show the consistency you need from a lead back. The Bengals know Joe Burrow needs a reliable ground game to reach another Super Bowl. Now I ask you, wouldn't it be awesome if the Commanders could use Robinson as part of a package to bring in Trey Hendrickson? Hendrickson had 17.5 sacks last season and is in the final year of his contract. The Bengals might be willing to trade him if they can get young talent in return. Imagine for a moment trading Robinson and maybe a draft pick for an elite pass rusher like Hendrickson. That would be a game-changing move for our defense. The Bengals need backfield depth, and we need quarterback pressure. I believe there's an opportunity there that Peters should seriously explore. Hendrickson, alongside Montez Sweat, would form one of the best pass rush duos in the NFL. That external pressure would make our linebackers and defensive backs look much better because rival quarterbacks wouldn't have time to find weaknesses in our coverage. The Houston Texans are also on the radar, especially with Joe Mixon's injuries. Mixon missed several weeks last season with ankle and rib injuries, and while he rushed for over 1,100 yards, Houston knows they need more depth. Nick Chubb no longer is the same player he was before his knee injuries in Cleveland. I assure you Robinson could be just what Houston needs to maintain their offensive momentum. C.J. Stroud needs a consistent running game to maximize his potential, and Robinson has shown he can be that type of reliable back who won't fumble the ball in crucial moments. The Texans have real Super Bowl aspirations after winning their division last year. The McLaurins knows Robinson well from when he was a defensive coordinator and knows exactly what kind of player he is. That familiarity could make Houston a perfect destination for Robinson. And we can't ignore Kansas City. The Chiefs are always looking for pieces to help them repeat as champions. Isaiah Pacheco was injured much of last season with a broken fibula, and while he returned for the playoffs, he's in his last contract year. I think Andy Reid would see in Robinson exactly the kind of back he needs for another Super Bowl. The Chiefs need someone to carry the ball 15 to 20 times per game when Pacheco isn't available, and Robinson has demonstrated he can handle that workload. Kansas City also values players with strong character, and Robinson's story of overcoming adversity aligns perfectly with the culture Reid and Brett Veach have built. Imagine Robinson running behind that Kansas City offensive line with Patrick Mahomes handling the offense. That could be lethal for rival defenses. But here's my real concern. Are we sure trading Robinson is the right decision? This is a player who knows Cliff Kingsbury's system, who has developed chemistry with Jaden Daniels, and who has demonstrated he can produce when given the chance. Robinson is also one of our locker room's vocal leaders. After what happened in his second year and how he came back stronger, he earned everyone's respect. Losing that type of leadership isn't something you can easily replace in the trade market. Now I ask you, is the risk worth it? If Robinson gets injured on his new team or doesn't produce as we expect the incoming trade to do, we'll be questioning this decision for years. This organization has made too many mistakes in the past by letting proven talent go for the promise of something better. Now, let's talk about something that really excites me. Jakorey Brooks. This undrafted rookie is about to show that every team that passed on him made a colossal mistake. In the first preseason game against the New York Jets, while the rest of the offense struggled to find rhythm with just 14 points scored. Brooks was a bright light with 5 receptions for 59 yards on 6 targets. I tell you this, that was no fluke. That was pure talent and preparation. But let's delve deeper into who Jakorey Brooks really is, because his story is far more interesting than most people know. Brooks arrived in Louisville as a transfer from Alabama, where he'd been a 4-star recruit, but hadn't been able to establish himself in Nick Saban's system. In Alabama, Brooks was behind receivers like Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs III, and Devonta Smith. Those are names we know well. Now in the NFL, and Brooks was competing with them for playing time. When he decided to transfer to Louisville, many saw him as someone who couldn't handle the competition at Alabama. I believe that experience in Alabama was exactly what Brooks needed to develop. Training every day against elite defensive backs, learning from some of the best college football receivers, and working with one of the best coaching staffs in the country gave him the tools he needed to excel in Louisville. In his only season as a Cardinal, Brooks immediately became Tyler Shaw's main weapon. He finished with 61 receptions for 1,013 yards and 9 touchdowns, but those numbers only tell part of the story. Brooks was Louisville's most reliable receiver in third down situations, converting 78% of his receptions into first downs. Terry McLaurin's absence from practices has opened a perfect opportunity window for Brooks, and he's taking full advantage. Reporters covering the team say Brooks is getting more reps with Jaden Daniels, and the chemistry they're building is exactly what we need to see. I believe with Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown, Jalen Lane, and Luke McCaffrey practically locked in the roster, Brooks is fighting for that 6th spot and possibly to displace some players we thought were secure. And after what we saw in the first preseason game, I assure you that spot should be his. Dan Quinn and his coordinators have been experimenting with different formations, and Brooks has shown versatility to play from the slot as an outside receiver, and even in some backfield formations. That versatility is exactly what you need from your 6th receiver in an NFL roster. Now I ask, how many times have we seen talents like this go unnoticed in the draft? The main reason Brooks went undrafted was his straight-line speed. His 40-yard dash time was 4.52 seconds, which isn't terrible, but doesn't impress NFL scouts either. But here's what scouts couldn't measure at the combine: Brooks' urgency in his routes and his ability to accelerate after the catch. In Louisville, Brooks averaged 16.6 yards per reception, and much of that production came after the initial catch. What impresses me most about Brooks is his ability to win contested balls. He led the entire draft class with a 69.6% win rate on contested catches. To put that in perspective, that percentage is better than Marvin Harrison Jr., Romo Duns, and Malik Neighbors, all receivers selected in the first round. That means when Jaden Daniels throws in the ball in a tough situation, Brooks will fight for it and catch it. In a league where passing windows are closing faster, having a receiver who can win contested balls is invaluable. And here's what really excites Emmy. Brooks had 20 receptions of over 20 yards last season at Louisville. That's the kind of explosiveness we need in our offense. He doesn't have the pure speed some might expect, but he makes up for it with urgency in his routes and the ability to stack defensive backs. Brooks also showed at Louisville that he can be a legitimate red zone threat. Of his 9 touchdowns, 6 came within the 20 yards, and he had a special ability to find soft spots in zone coverage. That's exactly the kind of skill Cliff Kingsbury can exploit in his offensive system. Monday night against Cincinnati will be crucial for Brooks. The Bengals are going to play mostly with their substitutes in the second half, which is when Brooks will probably see more time. If he keeps getting game time with Daniels and building that connection, I believe he'll not only secure his spot on the roster, but here's what really gets me excited: the similarities between Brooks and some late-blooming receivers. Wes Welker wasn't drafted. Chris Hogan was a lacrosse player who became a solid receiver. Adam Thielen wasn't drafted either and became a Pro Bowler. Brooks has that chip on his shoulder that you need to succeed as an undrafted free agent. He knows 32 teams passed him over, and that extra motivation can be the difference between being cut and becoming a real contributor. NFL coaching staffs are good at identifying talent, but sometimes they fall too in love with metrics, like 40-yard dash speed, and forget to assess real football playing ability. Brooks can play football, and that's what matters most. After years of watching this organization overlook young talent or failing to properly develop their receivers, we finally have a regime that recognizes potential when it sees it. Brooks is exactly the kind of player who can surprise the league this year. And now we come to the topic that has the whole Commanders nation on edge: Terry McLaurin's contract situation. I'm going to tell you something you might not want to hear, but need to understand. This negotiation will define not only this season, but the future of this franchise for the next 5 years. McLaurin was activated from the PUP list after missing practice time with a supposed ankle injury. But I think we all know that injury had more to do with contracts than sports medicine. On July 31st, McLaurin requested a team change. That date should be engraved in every Commanders fan's memory because it marked the start of this era's most important negotiation. Let's be honest about what's really happening here. McLaurin sees what's happening around the league with receivers of his caliber. DK Metcalf just signed a 5-year, $150 million contract with Pittsburgh. Davante Adams is earning more than $28 million per year. With Las Vegas, Tyreek Hill signed for $30 million annually with Miami. McLaurin is seeing those numbers and wondering why who has been more productive than some of those receivers over the last 3 years, isn't receiving the same treatment. And I tell you this, he's right to question it. I asked you something important. Did you really believe the organization was going to let go of the best receiver in this franchise's history after reaching the NFC Championship game? Because I assure you that was never going to happen, especially with Josh Harris as the new owner willing to spend money to win. Ben Solek of ESPN said it clearly after visiting training camp. He cannot find anyone who believes McLaurin will play for another team in 2025. And I completely agree with that assessment. This situation is going to end with a commitment extension before Week 1. But let's analyze why McLaurin deserves that money. Over the last 3 years, McLaurin has been one of the most consistent receivers in the entire NFL. He has had over 1,000 receiving yards in each of those seasons, even playing with quarterbacks like Carson Wentz, Taylor Heinicke, and Sam Howell before Jayden Daniels arrived. McLaurin finished last season with the second highest number of receiving touchdowns in the entire league with 13, just behind Tyreek Hill, who had 13 as well, but with fewer total yards. Those 13 touchdowns came with 4 different quarterbacks throughout the season. That speaks to a receiver who can adapt and produce no matter who is throwing him the ball. And here's the reality. McLaurin will turn 30 in September, but he's at the peak of his career. He hasn't lost a step in terms of speed. His route running has refined each year, and his game understanding is at its highest point. I think the organization clearly understands what McLaurin means to Jayden Daniels. In the games they played together last season, the connection was immediate and explosive. McLaurin was Daniels' favorite target, especially in third down and red zone situations. The betting houses have the Commanders tied for third place with San Francisco and Green Bay as favorites to represent the NFC in Super Bowl 60 with odds of plus 950. That is no coincidence, and much of that confidence is based on the Daniels-McLaurin connection and the explosive potential of that combination. The problem here is not whether McLaurin deserves the money. He clearly does. The problem is finding a number that works for both parties. McLaurin wants aspects of Metcalf's contract, which includes $90 million guaranteed dollars and an average annual of $30 million. But here's the complication. The Commanders also have to consider other extensions coming on the horizon. Jayden Daniels is going to need a massive contract after his rookie season. Montez Sweat just signed an extension, but other key players like Jonathan Allen and Darren Payne will also need new contracts soon. Josh Harris has shown he's willing to spend money. We just saw that with the signings of Austin Eckler, Noah Brown, and others in the offseason. But he is also a smart businessman who understands the importance of salary cap management. The fact that McLaurin has been activated suggests he isn't willing to lose money sitting out regular season games if there isn't an extension signed when we open the campaign against the Giants on September 7. I tell you this, that's exactly the mentality we want to see from our number one receiver. McLaurin also knows this could be his last chance to get a really big contract. At 30 years old, this will likely be his last significant multi-year deal. He wants to ensure his family is financially secure for the rest of their lives. Now I ask you, what kind of commitment extension might McLaurin accept? I believe it will be something in the range of $22 to $26 million per year for 4 years, with around $60 to $70 million guaranteed. Less than Metcalf, but enough to keep him happy and motivated. The organization knows that. Without McLaurin, our Super Bowl aspirations become significantly more complicated. Deebo Samuel is good, but he's arriving in Washington after a challenging season in San Francisco. Noah Brown is a solid receiver, but not a number one. Luke McCaffrey has potential, but is a rookie. This situation reminds me of all the times we've watched this franchise let talent go over contract issues. But this time it's different. This time we have an organization that understands what it means to win, and McLaurin is a fundamental piece of that puzzle. The chemistry between McLaurin and Daniels is something you can't teach or quickly develop. They already have that special connection that only develops between elite quarterbacks and receivers. Breaking up that combination would be a massive mistake that could sink our championship aspirations. We also have to consider the message we'd be sending to the rest of the league if we let McLaurin go. The best free agents want to join organizations that value and retain their best players. Losing McLaurin over money would send exactly the opposite message. Look, I've presented you with 3 situations that will define the immediate future of our Washington Commanders. The possible departure of Brian Robinson Jr. shows this organization is strategically thinking about every position, but it also makes us wonder if we're willing to sacrifice proven talent for the potential of improvements in other areas. Do you think Peters should trade Robinson for a pass rusher like Hendrickson? Or is it more important to maintain stability in the backfield? Jakorey Brooks is showing us that true talent always finds its way, whether drafted or not. His story, from Alabama to Louisville and now Washington, is exactly the type of narrative that makes football so special. Do you think Brooks has what it takes to become a secret weapon in our offense? Or are we placing too much hope on an undrafted rookie? And McLaurin's situation puts us at a crossroads between the present and the future. Paying a receiver who's about to turn 30 is risky, but losing our franchise's best offensive player would be devastating. Are you willing to pay whatever it takes to keep our star receiver, or do you believe the organization should set firm fiscal limits? I think these three pieces of news show us one clear thing. We finally have an organization that isn't afraid to make tough decisions to build a winning team. From Adam Peters to Dan Quinn, this administration is proving they understand what it takes to compete at the highest level in a league where mediocrity kills you. As Commanders family, we've waited too long to have this kind of stability and vision. It's time we unite as the strong community we are and support every decision that brings us closer to that Super Bowl ring we've dreamed of for so long. If this analysis helped you better understand what's happening with our team, show that. Support with a like and subscribe to the channel. We need to grow as a community so our voice is heard louder throughout the league. Share this video with every Commanders fan you know, because you won't find this depth and passion anywhere else. We are family, and families support each other. And remember, hail to the Redskins.